Chapter 141. A Strange Scene. Inside the domain space, Shu Kexen had already been untied and was sitting silently on the cold ground. Her back was slightly tense, and her expression was guarded, while opposite her sat the gentle-looking Lin Shi and Su Wanwan. Seeing Shu Kexen's guarded demeanor, Lin Shi gently reassured her. "Sister Shu, Big Brother Wudi is a very good person. You don't need to worry too much." Su Wanwan also nodded in agreement from the side, her eyes filled with kindness without a shred of hostility. Upon hearing this, Shu Kexen's lips twitched, but she didn't know how to respond. Ever since she arrived in this strange place the first time she saw Wudi, she had been in a bound state. Although they had never done anything excessive to her over the past 2 days, and had even continuously brought her food and water, she still couldn't say she felt any affection for them. However, she also clearly knew that she owed them her life. If it hadn't been for Wu Dai and his group intervening to save her, she would likely have frozen to death on that snowy field by now, becoming nothing more than a fleeting shadow on the road of survival. Just as Shu Kexen was struggling internally, not knowing how to phrase her words, the three of them suddenly heard a burst of hurried footsteps. Lin Yu ran in, looking jubilant, her excitement impossible to hide. "Sister? Sister Wanwan, hurry outside, we can watch movies. I just checked, and all the films can be watched." After saying this, she turned to look at Shu Kexen on the side, her tone cheerful. "Sister Zhu, you should come too. That holographic projection is really amazing." Seeing this, Lin Shi instinctively called out, "Xiao Yue," her tone carrying a hint of concern. But Lin Yue waved her hand dismissively and pulled Lin Shi's arm, heading outside. "Sister, it's fine. Big Brother Wudi specifically asked for Sister Zhu to come out too. Let's go. I'll take you to see it. That holographic projection is truly magical." Lin Shi had no choice but to give Su Wanwan a look, then turned to Shu Kexen, her tone gentle and sincere. "Sister Shu, you should come too. Don't worry, Big Brother Wudi definitely won't make things difficult for you." Shu Kexen was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. She knew clearly that at this moment they were the butchers, and she was the fish. She had no right to refuse, and could only follow their arrangements. Rather than remaining at a stalemate, it was better to go with the flow and see what their true intentions were. Afterward, Lin Yue pulled Lin Shi to walk in the front. Su Wanwan followed quietly on the side, and Shu Kexen walked silently at the back as the group walked out of the domain space together. The moment she stepped out of the domain space, Shu Kexen froze completely. Her eyes widened, her mouth slightly agape, her face full of disbelief, and even her breathing instinctively paused. Previously, inside the domain space, she had already been surprised by its miraculous nature, but after lying inside for 2 days, she had gradually gotten used to that anomaly. However, the scene inside the vehicle cabin before her eyes still far exceeded her expectations. The cabin was exceptionally spacious, with a white coffee table placed in the middle, and rows of sofas neatly arranged on either side. The entire cabin was so spacious that it didn't look like a RV at all, but rather like a cozy, small, casual living room. Wudi was sitting in the driver's seat. Hearing the footsteps, he slowly turned his head to take a look. When his gaze landed on Shu Kexen, his brows furrowed slightly. She was still wearing the same clothes she had on when she was rescued, the fabric stained with dried blood, making her look particularly disheveled. He paused for a moment, then said to Lin Shi and Su Wanwan, "Take her to clean up." Shu Kexen was taken by Lin Shi and Su Wanwan to clean up, and she changed into a set of clean clothes. When she stood inside the cabin again, the disbelief in her eyes still hadn't faded after a long time. She looked around, her heart full of confusion. Why were the facilities here so complete? They seemed not to care about scarce fuel at all, and even the temperature inside the cabin was maintained at the most comfortable level, showing none of the embarrassment and hardship that should accompany life on the road of survival. At this moment, Lin Yue leaned in, looked Shu Kexen up and down, and spoke bluntly. "Sister Zhu, you are so pretty." It's just that your figure isn't as good as my sister's, nor as good as Sister Wanwan's." After saying this, she even looked down at her own small frame, appearing very serious. Upon hearing this, Lin Shi's cheeks instantly flushed red. Feeling both angry and helpless, she immediately reached out and patted Lin Yu's head. "What are you spouting nonsense for? Go to the front and help Big Brother Woody keep an eye on the outside. Don't cause trouble here." The reason Lin Shi did this was, on one hand, because she was embarrassed by Lin Yu's blunt words, and on the other hand, she guessed that Wu Di had specifically asked for Shu Kexin to come out because he must have something to say to her, and she didn't want Lin Yu to disturb them. Chapter 142. Formal Invitation. "Lin Yu, I'll go with you." Seeing this, Su Wanwan gently took Lin Yu's hand, and the two walked toward the driver's seat together. "Big Brother Wu Di, you go ahead, I'll keep an eye on the outside." Su Wanwan walked to the side of the driver's seat, her tone gentle yet firm. Wu Di nodded and stood up, leaving the driver's seat. Su Wanwan took the opportunity to sit down. Watching this, Lin Yue opened her mouth but swallowed her words before they could come out. She could only obediently sit back in the passenger seat, though her gaze kept turning back, curiously looking toward the movement inside the vehicle cabin. Wu Di walked to the sofa in the middle of the cabin and sat down, his gaze falling on Shu Kexin, who was sitting opposite him. Shu Kexin no longer looked as disheveled as before. After cleaning up, she revealed a pretty and delicate face, though her brows and eyes still held a lingering sense of reserve. She had changed into simple, light-colored clothing that accentuated her slender figure. Having shed her previous dishevelment, she appeared much more gentle, though a trace of imperceptible wariness still lingered in her eyes. Lin Shi stood quietly to the side, watching the two of them. "Miss Shu, how much do you know about your talent?" Wu Di got straight to the point, his tone steady, without any unnecessary pleasantries. I'm not very sure either." Shu Kexin shook her head gently, her tone filled with uncertainty. She really knew very little about her own talent. It was just that throughout this journey she had narrowly escaped desperate situations several times, yet she had never been certain if it was her talent working in the shadows. "Then I'll get straight to the point." Wu Di leaned forward slightly, his tone still crisp. "I'm inviting you to join our team now. There's no other meaning, I just value your talent." Too many strange things had happened over the past 2 days. He had deliberated for a long time before making this decision. More importantly, the worry about the final day of the crisis had been lingering in his heart. Shu Kexin was completely stunned. She never expected Wu Di to be so direct and for a moment didn't know how to respond. A complex mix of emotions surged within her. On one hand, seeing the life here with her own eyes, it was far more stable and comfortable than any other survivor she knew. Ample supplies, safe vehicles, and complete facilities, which made her tempted. After all, in this world fraught with crises, surviving alone was too difficult. On the other hand, she couldn't simply nod and agree. Firstly, she knew too little about Wu Di and the others, and there was still a barrier between them. Agreeing rashly would seem too impulsive, even a bit humble, as if she were clinging to them to survive. Secondly, she knew clearly that she had no choice right now. Her vehicle was gone and she was trapped here. Even if she didn't agree, she likely had no other way out, but this forced compromise left her feeling somewhat unwilling. "I know you might not be willing, but the situation is special right now." Seeing her hesitation, Wu Di softened his tone slightly and added, "Tomorrow is the final day of the crisis. I'm inviting you to join so that you can stay with us and successfully get through this last hurdle. Furthermore, you don't have a vehicle right now, and it's impossible to survive alone outside. Once this stage is over and the crisis is lifted, if you want to leave, we can let you go. We definitely won't stop you." He didn't want to waste too much time on this. The unease in his heart was growing stronger. He had a feeling that the crisis on the final day would exceed all his imagination. "That's right, Sister Shu," Lin Shi chimed in softly from the side, her tone gentle and sincere. "Why don't you join us first? Later, as long as you want to leave, you can go any time." She believed that once Shu Kexin truly understood the situation here, she wouldn't think about leaving anymore. After all, so far she had never seen any survivors in the communication channel who lived more comfortably or securely than they did. Shu Kexin opened her mouth several times, wanting to voice her concerns and hesitation, but the words were swallowed back each time. She simply lowered her head in silence, her eyes filled with conflict. Watching her, Wu Di saw signs that she was tempted, so he stood up. "You and Lin Shi talk some more, and think it over carefully." With that, he turned and walked toward the driver's seat. "Big brother Wu Di, Shi." Seeing Wu Di walk over, Su Wanwan asked in a low voice, her eyes filled with some confusion. "You go and communicate with them, I can handle things here." Wu Di shook his head slightly. He still felt that if the three girls communicated, Shu Kexin might be more relaxed and more likely to lower her guard. Su Wanwan nodded, stood up, left the driver's seat, and walked into the vehicle cabin. Wu Di sat in the driver's seat, his gaze fixed intently on the movements outside the vehicle. "Big brother Wu Di." Lin Yu, who had been holding back for a long time, had poked her head over several times wanting to say something, but didn't dare to interrupt easily. Finally, unable to hold back anymore, she called out in a low voice. Wu Di helplessly turned his head. Looking at her appearance of wanting to say something but hesitating, he said, "If you want to say something, just say it." With permission granted, Lin Yu immediately opened the floodgates, speaking rapidly. "Big brother Wu Di, what if Sister Zhu doesn't want to stay here? She doesn't have a vehicle right now, and it's so cold outside, she'll definitely freeze to death. Also, Big brother Wu Di, I saw in the communication channel that those survivors without vehicles all died in the end. Why don't we just take her in? My sister, Sister Wanwan, and I are very strong now. She definitely won't be a match for us." As she spoke, Lin Yue clenched her fists, seemingly demonstrating her strength. Seeing Lin Yu babbling on without stopping, Wu Di shook his head helplessly and could only send her away. "All right, why don't you go into the cabin and help persuade her?" "Received, Commander. Mission guaranteed to be completed." Lin Yue immediately straightened her posture, mimicking Xiaoxi's tone, and said with a serious face. After saying that, she hurriedly stood up from the passenger seat and ran quickly into the cabin. Chapter 143, Important Materials. Wu Di did not deliberately listen to the conversation among the people in the carriage. Although with his hearing, he could hear everything clearly if he wanted to, all his spirit was focused on the environment outside the vehicle at this moment. He did not want to miss a single supply point today. Only when eating did Shu Kexin look at the food on the table and become completely stunned, her eyes filled with shock. Although she had seen fresh vegetables grown in the domain space before, when a table of sumptuous food was truly placed in front of her, that kind of shock was still hard to hide. She had come all the way relying on exchanged packaged food and simple food opened from supply crates, and had never eaten such steaming, fresh, and delicious food. This meal ended quietly in such a slightly subtle atmosphere. Wu Di ate a few bites, then put down his bowl and chopsticks, returned to the driver's seat, and stared outside the vehicle. It wasn't until 13:34 in the afternoon that Wu Di's gaze suddenly paused, and he finally saw the sign of a supply point not far ahead. "Xiaoxi, stop." "Received, Commander." The RV stopped slowly, and Wu Di got up, got out of the car, and walked quickly toward the supply point. This supply point did not have the precious vehicle upgrade book from before, only 2 green quality vehicle accessory blueprints, which were almost useless to Wu Di now. Spring hydraulic crash beam design, green quality, vehicle accessory. Install hydraulic buffer rods at the front and rear of the vehicle body. Absorb impact kinetic energy through elastic deformation and hydraulic damping, significantly reducing impact conduction and protecting the main vehicle frame. Production requirements: metal block ×3, rubber ×3. Exchange requirements: 100 points. Hub embedded explosion-proof support ring design, green quality, vehicle accessory, where resistant support ring embedded in the hub can bear the vehicle load, maintain the wheel shape, and achieve safe driving under 0 tire pressure. Production requirements: metal block ×4. Exchange requirements: 100 points. But what made Wu Di's eyes light up was that the basic materials at this supply point actually included atomic mass substance, This was a material he had been looking for a long time, and had not been able to obtain. Now, he only lacked this one material to directly craft upgrades for several blueprints in his hand. Ding, purchase successful, obtained atomic mass substance times 5. Points, 50. It's a pity that it's too little. Why limit the exchange? Wu Di stared at the limit 5 exchanges prompt on the exchange machine, his brows slightly furrowed. Although 50 points was not cheap, for him who had sufficient points now, this amount of points was nothing at all. He cared more about the quantity of atomic mass substance, which was far from enough for him to finish crafting all the accessories. After the exchange was completed, Wu Di did not stay long, and turned back to the vehicle. In the carriage, Lin Shi, Su Wanwan, and Lin Yu were still communicating softly with Shu Kexin, and the atmosphere was quite harmonious. Wu Di did not speak, just silently walked back to the driver's seat, sat down again, and cast his gaze outside the vehicle again. Xiaoxi, continue forward. Received, Commander. The RV started slowly and drove smoothly towards the front. At this time, Lin Shi walked forward gently and came to the side of the driver's seat. Big brother Wu Di, she has agreed to join us. Let me watch outside the vehicle. You go and talk to her again. Wu Di nodded slightly without hesitation, got up, and left the driver's seat. When Lin Yue saw Wu Di walking over, her eyes lit up instantly. She quickly stood up, grabbed Wu Di's arm, and pulled him towards the sofa. Big brother Wu Di, come and sit quickly. Immediately after, she sat down next to Wu Di, looking at Shu Kexin with anticipation. Big brother Wu Di, hurry up and add Sister Zhu to the team. This way our team will be stronger, and I can be even more powerful. Lin Yu's tone was cheerful, and her face was full of excitement. Seeing this, Su Wanwan shook her head helplessly, stepped forward, and gently pulled Lin Yu's hand, persuading in a gentle tone. Let's go, Xiao Yu. Let's go to the front and watch. Let big brother Wu Di and Sister Zhu have a good talk. Lin Yu was full of reluctance, with a bitter face. While being pulled by Su Wanwan towards the driver's seat, she kept looking back, her eyes full of reluctance and curiosity. After the two left, Shu Kexin took a deep breath, raised her eyes to look at Wu Di, her tone firm. Before Wu Di could speak, she preemptively said, I agree to join you, but I have one request. Let's hear it. Wu Di frowned slightly. He was a little curious about what request Shu Kexin would make. I'm not asking for anything excessive, Shu Kexin explained quickly, her tone with a bit of restraint, but still firm. It's just that if I want to leave later, you can't stop me also. You need to help me get a vehicle. A trace of doubt flashed in Wu Di's eyes. However, before Wu Di could think carefully, Lin Shi's voice came from the side. Lin Shi walked over quickly, leaned into Wu Di's ear, and whispered, Big brother Wu Di, you don't know. As long as it is an ownerless vehicle, others can choose to unbind their original vehicle and rebind it. Lin Shi knew that Wu Di rarely paid attention to the news in the communication channel on weekdays, so he probably didn't know this rule. No problem. After listening to Lin Shi's explanation, Wu Di suddenly realized, his tone still crisp. The number of vehicles destroyed in his hands was countless. Helping Shu Kexin find an ownerless vehicle was just a matter of convenience for him, not a difficult task at all. Then welcome to the team. Wu Di looked at Shu Kexin, his tone a bit calmer, but still with a bit of warning. For you, we will not have any different treatment, but you should not have other inappropriate thoughts. Otherwise, you probably don't want to see the consequences. After speaking, Wu Di stood up, walked towards the driver's seat, and instructed Lin Shi behind him. Lin Shi, you invite her to join the contract team. Chapter 144, saying hello. What Wu Di did not know was that after concluding the contract of life and death together, Shu Kexin was deeply shocked once again. She stared at the contract panel, her eyes full of disbelief, her heart filled with confusion. She really could not figure out why this team not only had abundant supplies, but the vehicle clearly had many powerful items installed, and even the contract item used for team formation was so special. Especially the sentence on the contract. Conclude a soul contract with teammates, using faith as the rope and survival as the covenant. Those who violate it will surely face sanctions. Every word was clear, making her heart sink and leaving her full of confusion. Sister Zhu, don't overthink it. Seeing Shu Kexen frowning and looking dazed, Lin Shi immediately comforted her softly, her tone gentle and patient. This contract is very powerful. Take a look at your base attributes. Haven't they improved a lot? She knew this feeling all too well. When she first saw this contract, she was just like Shu Kexen, stunned by its uniqueness and power, unable to recover for a long time. Hearing this, Shu Kexen slowly regained her focus. The confusion in her eyes faded a bit, and she finally completely understood. No matter how absurd all of this was, she was now helpless and alone, and at the very least she needed to rely on them for now. Worrying more was useless. She shook her head gently, her tone a bit reserved but with more composure. Then what do I need to do now? We should not need to do anything, right? Asked by Shu Kexen. Lin Shi was taken aback, her tone hesitant, not knowing how to answer for a moment. Since joining Wu Di's team, Lin Shi carefully recalled that she had indeed only been responsible for cooking and managing the chores in the vehicle. At other times, she actually lived more comfortably than in the real world. Aside from occasionally feeling bored, she almost never had to worry about any danger or stress over supplies. Watching Lin Shi's hesitant expression, Shu Kexen became even more confused. Her brows furrowed slightly, her tone filled with puzzlement. Don't we need to go fight monsters? Then where do your supplies come from? She really could not understand how this team managed to live so comfortably in this crisis-ridden survival world. As soon as she finished speaking, mentioning the word battle, Shu Kexen's eyes suddenly lit up, as if she had remembered something, her tone carrying a bit of urgency and caution. By the way, where's my bow and arrow? Can you return it to me? Don't worry, I have no malicious intent. It is very important to me. The bow and arrow is with Big Brother Wu Di, Lin Shi quickly replied, her tone gentle. As for fighting, we probably won't need it for now. When we need it later, Big Brother Wu Di will definitely return it to you. She paused, thought for a long time, and then added, if you feel bored and want to do something, you can check the trading channel and keep an eye out for any useful blueprints or similar things. That could also help the team. After saying this, Lin Shi sat down and began to check the communication channel on her own, saying nothing more. What a strange team, Shu Kexen muttered to herself, her gaze sweeping past the focused Lin Shi opposite her, then turning to look at Wu Di in the driver's seat staring outside, then at Lin Yue in the passenger seat who was occasionally peeking out, and finally at the quiet Su Wanwan on the side, her heart filled with complex emotions. Afterward, she decided to follow Lin Shi's suggestion and began to monitor the trading channel. She did not want to be a burden. At the very least, she wanted to prove that she was still useful. In the time that followed, the vehicle fell into a brief silence. Occasionally, when Wu Di discovered a supply point, there was the movement of stopping the car, getting out to inspect, exchanging supplies, and returning to the vehicle, along with Xiaoxi's notification sounds. Aside from that, there was no other noise. It was not until around 17 in the afternoon that Lin Shi stood up, brushed off her clothes, and prepared to go to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Shu Kexen watched her stand up, her lips moving as if she wanted to say something. But she hesitated, swallowing the words that had reached her lips. Lin Shi noticed her unusual behavior and turned to look at her, her tone gentle and kind, saying with a smile, Sister Zhu, we are a team now. You can say whatever you want, don't be polite or reserved. Infected by Lin Shi's gentleness, Shu Kexen took a deep breath, her tone carrying a bit of embarrassment, and asked softly, who is Xiaoxi? I've heard Wu Di talking to Xiaoxi all afternoon, sometimes stopping the car, sometimes moving forward. Although Shu Kexen had her guesses, she still wanted to confirm. Hearing this question, a faint blush instantly appeared on Lin Shi's cheeks, and she smiled somewhat embarrassedly, explaining, Sorry, I forgot to tell you. Xiaoxi is the artificial intelligence in our vehicle. After saying that, she called out softly to the air, Xiaoxi, say hello to our new teammate. Hello, Ms. Yu Kexen. I am the RV Intelligent Hub. You can also call me Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi's sweet voice rang out, clearly spreading throughout the vehicle, her tone calm and without the slightest fluctuation. Shu Kexen was stunned. Since arriving here, everything she had seen was two incredible, abundant supplies, powerful vehicles, special contracts, and now there was even artificial intelligence. Although vehicle-mounted AI was common in her original world, in this crisis-ridden place where even survival was difficult, she had never heard of anyone possessing artificial intelligence. This simply exceeded her understanding. Chapter 145. Talent Fragment. Shu Kexen stood dazed for a moment, watching Lin Shi turn and walk towards the kitchen to prepare dinner. After a moment of silence, she gathered her courage and walked forward. Her tone was a bit reserved but very sincere. "Let me help too." "Sure," Lin Shi said, immediately turning her head and giving Shu Kexen a gentle smile. Her tone was light and without the slightest refusal. "With your help, I can be faster." Just as the two were about to enter the kitchen, a sharp, urgent shout suddenly came from ahead from Lin Yu. "Ah, Big Brother Wu Di!" This shout broke the peace inside the carriage. Shu Kexen, Lin Shi, and Su Wanwan, who were busy with their own tasks, all instinctively looked toward Lin Yu in the passenger seat. Lin Yu, however, seemed not to notice that everyone's gaze was fixed on her. She still stood up from the passenger seat with an excited face and quickly ran to Wu Di's side. Wu Di withdrew his gaze from the scene outside the vehicle and turned to look at the excited Lin Yu. "What is it?" Lin Yu caught her breath and spoke rapidly. "Big Brother Wu Di? Someone is selling a silver-grade talent fragment. I saw it on the communication channel." Hearing Lin Yu's words, Wu Di was visibly stunned, a flash of surprise crossing his eyes. He hadn't expected that someone would actually be selling a talent fragment. "What do they want?" Wu Di immediately composed himself, his tone becoming a bit more serious as he hurriedly asked. Talent fragments were too important to him. "Ah, I haven't asked yet." Hearing this, the excitement on Lin Yu's face instantly froze. She scratched her head in embarrassment, and after finishing, immediately lowered her head to communicate with the other party. Wu Di just stared straight at Lin Yu, his eyes filled with a bit of helplessness, but he didn't urge her. On the side, Shu Kexen, Lin Shi, and Su Wanwan, seeing Wu Di's expression, all withdrew their gazes. A moment later, Lin Yu frowned, lifted her head, and said with a troubled tone, "Big Brother Wu Di, he said he doesn't know what to trade for either." Wu Di paused for a moment, his brows slightly furrowed. "What do you mean? He's selling the fragment but doesn't know what to trade for." Lin Yu hurriedly explained, lowering her head to reply to the other party quickly while saying, "He said his wife is in danger now. He wants to save her, but he doesn't know how, so he wants to sell the fragment to trade for something that can save his wife." "What's the situation with his wife?" "He said his wife discovered a supply point and then went out." "How is that dangerous?" Wu Di was speechless at this moment, his tone carrying a bit of helplessness. "No, that's not it." Lin Yu hurriedly waved her hands, finally lifting her head, and explained urgently, "His wife isn't with him. He seems unable to contact her now. He doesn't know where she is, and he doesn't know if she's safe." Hearing Lin Yu's words, Wu Di instantly understood it must be caused by the heavy snow outside. The snow outside today was exceptionally strange. It could even penetrate clothing and slowly absorb the human body's heat. But in this situation, he had no solution either. Just as Wu Di was deep in thought, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He remembered the team-up scroll he had obtained earlier when trading with Shu Kexen. Team-up scroll, special item, after use. You can invite a survivor to join your team. If the other party is in a safe state, they can teleport to your side, including their vehicle. Note: rely on yourself or rely on companions. How will you choose? Use this to trade with him and see if he's willing. Wu Di immediately took the team-up scroll from his storage space and handed it to Lin Yu. Lin Yu took the scroll and immediately lowered her head to communicate with the other party. A moment later, she suddenly lifted her head. The trouble on her face vanished without a trace, replaced by an excited face. "He agreed. Big Brother Wu Di, he agreed to the trade. Am I amazing?" After speaking as if remembering something, She asked in a low voice with a hint of worry. Big Brother Wu Di, do you think he can save his wife using this scroll? I'm not sure. If it's too late, he might not be able to save her. It's up to fate. As Wu Di said this, he took the silver-grade talent fragment that Lin Yu handed over. That's 3 now. 1 step closer. Wu Di looked at the fragment in his hand, murmuring to himself, his tone carrying a hint of imperceptible anticipation. He was 1 step closer to collecting all the fragments. Just as he lifted his head, he saw Lin Yu leaning in front of him, looking up with her little face, looking like she was waiting for praise, even with a hint of expectant smile at the corners of her mouth. Watching Lin Yu's expression, Wu Di raised his hand and gently patted her head. Amazing. Thanks to you today. Hearing the praise, Lin Yu's mouth widened, looking triumphant. Of course, I'm very amazing. Wu Di smiled and shook his head. Let's go. Time to eat. Lin Yu immediately nodded and followed closely behind Wu Di. Big Brother Wu Di, I saw many people on the communication channel saying that today's supply point has many good things, but it's a pity they don't have enough points and can't exchange for them at all. Also, Big Brother Wu Di, can the snowflakes outside really absorb heat? Since I'm so strong now, will I be okay? As she spoke, she leaned closer to Wu Di, her eyes full of curiosity. Big Brother Wu Di, did we also exchange for many good things? We have so many points. Wu Di looked back at her, a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth, and didn't say much. Chapter 146, Omni-Dimensional Perception Array. Dinner ended with Shu Kexin feeling somewhat constrained. After the meal, she watched Wu Di and the other 3 sitting around the coffee table, feeling quite confused. This is? Shu Kexin wondered. Was there some special ritual after dinner? You'll know in a moment, Lin Shi explained softly, noticing her curiosity. When 6 p.m. arrived, Su Wanwan's talent treasure chest refreshed on time. A supply crate. Refreshed directly inside the vehicle? Shu Kexin's heart jolted as she watched the chest appear out of thin air on the coffee table. This is Sister Su's talent. It can produce blueprints, Lin Shi added in a low voice from the side. Shu Kexin's mouth hung open, feeling her understanding of the world being challenged once again. Su Wanwan looked at Wu Di, and after receiving a nod, she reached out to open the treasure chest, displaying the blueprint's attributes to everyone. Vehicle-mounted infrared detector. Blue quality. Vehicle-mounted item. Uses an uncooled focal plane sensor chip to penetrate various harsh weather conditions and obstructions, accurately capturing the heat source outlines ahead. Effective detection range, 200 meters. Installation requirement, level 2 or higher vehicle. Production requirements, metal block ×1, plastic ×1, glass ×1, electronic component ×10. Immediately after, Lin Yue applied a talent boost to Lin Shi, who then opened the silver-grade supply crate obtained earlier that morning. Big Brother Wu Di. It's all daily necessities inside, plus 20 units of metal blocks, 20 units of glass, and 20 units of electronic components, Lin Shi said, looking at Wu Di. Why can your silver supply crate yield so many materials? Seeing this, Shu Kexin finally couldn't help but speak up. As she spoke, the 4 of them looked at her simultaneously. What's wrong? I've opened a silver supply crate before, and there were definitely not this many materials, Shu Kexin quickly explained. Wu Di shook his head and turned to walk back to the driver's seat. Lin Yu followed him immediately. What does he mean? Shu Kexin was a bit bewildered and turned to look at Lin Shi. Lin Shi smiled and pulled Shu Kexin down to sit, slowly explaining things to her. Su Wanwan also smiled gently nearby, listening quietly. Back at the driver's seat, Wu Di turned his head and spoke directly to Lin Yu. Lin Yu, give me a talent boost. Okay, Lin Yu replied crisply, then stared intently at the vehicle leaderboard. Wu Di had already decided how to use his 3 remaining talent uses for the day, and how to utilize Talent Effect 2. The blueprint Su Wanwan just obtained happened to solve part of the problem with radar failure in this blizzard. He believed that there would definitely be an improvement after the enhancement. Ding! Talent. Rule breakthrough activated. Item promoted by 1 rank. Vehicle-mounted infrared detector blueprint, blue quality, has been promoted to Perception Enhancement Module Blueprint, purple quality. Perception Enhancement Module Blueprint, purple quality, integrates adaptive beamforming and clutter suppression algorithms to filter out strong interference signals caused by harsh environments, quickly reconstructing clear radar images. Production requirements: metal block times 5, plastic times 2, glass times 2, electronic component times 20, atomic mass substance times 5. Installation requirement requires vehicle-mounted radar equipment, level 4 or higher vehicle. Ding, Perception Enhancement Module Production complete. Ding, Talent, Rule Breakthrough, activated. Item promoted by 3 ranks. Perception Enhancement Module Blueprint, purple quality, has been promoted to Omnidimensional Perception Array, red quality. Omnidimensional Perception Array, red quality, vehicle-mounted item. Breaks the ironclad laws of scattering in 3-dimensional space, opening an observation window into the 4th dimension. By folding spatial distance, it gains insight into the causal necessity of object movement, ignores physical obstructions and environmental interference to achieve absolute perception. Installation requirement requires vehicle-mounted radar equipment, level 4 or higher vehicle. Remark: piercing 3-dimensional illusions with the eyes of the 4th dimension, reconstructing observation logic with the power of rules, and defining the limit of perception with space-time technology. You are omniscience. You are truth. Wu Di stared blankly at the system prompts before him, stunned in place. The 3-rank jump with only a 5% probability had triggered once again. To hit such an infinitesimal chance twice in a single day felt inconceivable even to him. What shook his soul even more was that this item, which had soared all the way from a blue blueprint, finally settled at red quality. This was already the 2nd red quality item in his hands. Despite the probability being so low it was almost negligible, it had fallen upon him time and again. Wu Di gazed at the red quality omnidimensional perception array, his heart surging with unbelievable shock, unable to calm down for a long time. Chapter 147. Ignition means execution. Big Brother Wu Di, what's wrong? Lin Yui stared at the vehicle leaderboard interface, waiting for a long time without seeing any changes, then turned her head and caught a glimpse of Wu Di sitting motionless, his eyes staring blankly, clearly lost in thought. Seeing that the 10-minute time limit for the talent boost was about to run out, she couldn't help but feel anxious. She gently tugged on Wu Di's sleeve and called out softly. Only then did Wu Di snap out of his shock. He turned his head to look at the anxious Lin Yu, his eyes still a bit dazed, clearly not having fully recovered from the impact of consecutively triggering low-probability upgrades. Big Brother Wu Di, the 10-minute time limit for the talent effect is about to run out. Seeing that he still hadn't fully regained his senses, Lin Yu added with a more urgent tone to remind him. Wu Di felt a jolt in his heart and fully regained his composure. He quickly gathered his thoughts, stopped delaying, and immediately set to work on the next talent enhancement. Ding, Heavy Armor Core Frame Production complete. Ding, Talent Rule Breakthrough activated. Item upgraded by 1 tier. Heavy Armor Core Frame, purple quality, has been upgraded to Titan Mk4 Composite Chassis, gold quality. Titan Mk4 Composite Chassis, gold quality. Vehicle accessory. Utilizing a 7-layer alternating vacuum compression process with titanium tungsten hard layers and polymer viscoelastic layers, it constructs a precise nonlinear gradient impedance structure with extremely strong kinetic energy absorption and impact dissipation characteristics. When subjected to impacts and explosions, the impact force can be redirected in real time and evenly distributed to all stress nodes of the vehicle, effectively inhibiting stress concentration and structural fracture, ensuring the vehicle body maintains its complete form and elastic recovery ability under extreme overload, significantly improving vehicle survivability. Installation requirement, level 4 or higher vehicle. That's good. Wu Di looked at the system prompt before him and let out a long sigh of relief. His tense shoulders finally relaxed, and his tone was full of relief. In the past, when enhancing items, he always hoped for a 2-tier or 3-tier upgrade. But after today's 2 consecutive, abnormal, low-probability triggers, a 1-tier upgrade actually made him feel grounded. This was the normal enhancement probability, the rhythm he was familiar with. The 2 consecutive surprises just now had actually made him feel flustered. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Today's talent effect 2 had already refreshed. Now that the carriage's defense was bolstered by the red-quality ancient construct Emperor's divine armor, it was already strong enough. What he lacked most right now was power. After encountering the quantum primordial material today, he decided to use this opportunity for talent effect 2 on the engine. Ding! Turbine pulse supercharged engine production complete. Ding! Talent rule breakthrough effect 2 activated. Item upgraded by 3 tiers. Turbine pulse supercharged engine, purple quality, has been upgraded to HX9 ion thruster, red quality. HX9 ion thruster, red quality. Vehicle item. Adopts magnetic confinement vector nozzles and pulse ionization technology. The working fluid is instantly ionized by a high-energy electric field into a high-speed plasma jet, erupting with extremely strong instantaneous thrust. The adaptive control system achieves zero-lag power, with no mechanical transmission loss. The all-solid-state structure completely eliminates vibration, realizing zero noise, all-weather, all-terrain stable high-performance output. Depending on the vehicle, speed 100 to 1000, consumes energy continuously after activation. Installation requirement, orange quality or higher power source, level 4 or higher vehicle. Note, in the electric field, the HX9 ions are orderly captured, accelerated, and discarded. It is not an engine, it is a compressor of time. Ignition means execution, and it refuses to stop. Once it cools down, there will never be a day of restarting. This. Woody stared fixedly at the attribute description before him, his lips moving slightly, unable to utter a complete sentence for a long time. Although this was already the 3rd red quality item in his possession, the attributes of the HX9 ion thruster still left him completely stunned. His pupils contracted slightly, and his eyes surged with undisguisable shock and disbelief. He had not expected the performance of this red thruster to be so ridiculously powerful. Zero lag, zero noise, and a speed increase of up to 1000. Such power had long since exceeded all his understanding of vehicle thrusters. Chapter 148. Everyone stunned. After carefully checking the attributes of the 3 items, Woody took a deep breath, forcing himself to suppress the shock in his heart and quickly calm down. Without a moment's hesitation, he directly chose to install the newly acquired Titan Mk4 composite chassis, omnidimensional perception array, and HX9 ion thruster. Ding! Detected installation of vehicle accessories. HX9 ion thruster, Titan Mk4 composite chassis. The vehicle must be in a stationary state. Xiaoxi, stop the vehicle. Acknowledged, Commander. Accompanied by Xiaoxi's sweet voice, the RV slowly decelerated. Shu Kexin, inside the cabin, finally let out a long sigh of relief, her hanging heart finally settling. Seeing that it was already past 18, and the team she had just joined was still moving forward, she had been quite frightened. In this survival phase, stopping to rest at night was the safest choice. Those survivors who recklessly continued to move forward deep into the night and ultimately remained in the snow forever were living cautionary tales. She certainly didn't want to encounter misfortune just after joining the team. Ding! Accessory installation successful. As the system prompt faded, all 3 newly acquired items were fully installed. At this, not only was Lin Yu, sitting in the passenger seat, completely stunned, but Su Wanwan and Lin Shi inside the cabin were also shocked beyond measure, their faces filled with expressions of disbelief. They had already prepared themselves mentally, knowing that Woody might add new vehicle accessories. However, when they saw that the vehicle leaderboard had increased by over 200,000 points in one go, nearly doubling, they were still deeply shocked by this astonishing surge, unable to speak for a moment. Shu Kexin looked at Su Wanwan, who was standing still across from her, then turned to look at Lin Shi beside her, who was also full of shock and frozen in place. Her heart was filled with confusion and doubt, and she couldn't help but inwardly complain. So, is everyone in this team abnormal? Just as Shu Kexin was complaining to herself, a sudden commotion came from the passenger seat. Ah, Big Brother Wu Di. Lin Yu jumped up from her seat, rushed to Wu Di's side, her face full of excitement, her cheeks flushed red. Big Brother Wu Di, you! Lin Yue opened her mouth, incoherent with excitement. She wanted to say something, but after struggling for a long time without organizing her thoughts, she could only stare straight at Wu Di. Wu Di watched Lin Yu, who was too excited to speak and couldn't help but smile. He turned his head to look at the back of the cabin, seeing that Su Wanwan and Lin Shi were still full of shock, their eyes glazed over. As for Shu Kexin, she was looking at them as if they were fools, her eyes filled with confusion and helplessness. Wu Di restrained his smile and instructed the air. Xiao Shi, I've installed new accessories for you. Run a performance check. Acknowledged, Commander. Detected HX-9 ion thruster, Titan Mk4 composite chassis, and omnidimensional perception array. All have been incorporated into system control. Commander, detected that the omnidimensional perception array has been installed. The vehicle-mounted full-domain scanning radar has returned to normal operation. Detected that the HX-9 ion thruster has been installed. Based on the current chassis structure and the load on the matrix stabilization tracks, the estimated current top speed can be maintained at 300 kilometers per hour. Commander, due to the installation of the HX-9 ion thruster, the vehicle must remain permanently powered on, resulting in extremely high energy consumption. The lifespan of the vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor has been significantly reduced. The estimated remaining time until replacement is 7 days. The other 4 people in the cabin were mostly confused upon hearing the series of item names Xiao Shi announced, having no idea what the specific functions of these items were. But when the 6 words, vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor, reached their ears, the 4 of them instantly froze, all looking at Wu Di with strange, unified gazes. Lin Shi, Lin Yue, and Su Wanwan had always known that Wu Di's RV had never used fuel. Although they had been curious in the past, they had never proactively asked about the power source. Now, for the first time, they knew that the power for the RV actually came from a vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor. The shock in their hearts was indescribable. As for Shu Kexin, she had her mouth wide open, frozen in place, her eyes filled with disbelief. Although she didn't know what grade of item a vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor was, just hearing the name made it clear that its grade was definitely not low. Especially that HX-9 ion thruster, if it consumes so much energy from a nuclear reactor that it can only last for 7 days, then what grade must that thruster be? This is. Shu Kexin suddenly turned to look at Lin Shi, her eyes filled with confusion and doubt, hoping to get an answer from her. Lin Shi noticed Shu Kexin's gaze and offered a helpless and awkward smile, but she didn't speak. In fact, her heart was just as confused as Shu Kexin's. She also didn't know what grade the vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor was. Nor did she know the power of the ion thruster. But she vaguely felt that the commotion this time was simply too big. Chapter 1 for 49 stopped quickly. Upon hearing Xiao Shi's introduction, Wu Di immediately opened the vehicle interface to check the specific details. Vehicle, level 5 vehicle. Top speed, 300 kilometers per hour. Vehicle accessories items, lucky pendant, gold. HX-9, ion thruster, red. Composite bulletproof crystallized glass, purple Titan Mk4. Composite chassis, gold vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor, orange smart constant temperature refrigerator, purple atmospheric water collection unit, orange vehicle-mounted full-domain scanning radar, gold 30mm chain autocannon, orange intelligent hub, gold Titan armor-piercing ram, purple multispectral penetrating lighting unit, purple composite armor coating, gold all-domain stealth reconnaissance aircraft, purple holographic phantom camouflage, gold primal construct, Emperor's divine armor, red matrix stabilization tracks. Gold, supernuclear power module. Orange, anti-gravity suspension stability field generator. Orange, holographic cinema projection module. Purple, full-dimensional perception array. Red. Looking at the attribute information before him, a smile curled at the corners of Wudi's mouth, and he immediately closed the system interface. He raised his head and found that Lin Yue was still staring straight at him from his side. He turned his head to look towards the back of the cabin, and Su Wanwan, Lin Shi, and Shu Kexin were also staring at him with burning gazes, their eyes full of curiosity and confusion. Wu Dai had just started to speak, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by Lin Yu. Lin Yu leaned forward. "Big brother Wudi, what was that? What is an HX-9 ion thruster? And what is that array thing?" "Well, it's just that I changed the engine. I don't know how to describe it." Wudi felt quite a headache at this moment. Although he enjoyed the admiring gazes of everyone, so far he had learned from the communication channel that while some survivors did possess gold quality items, he had never heard anyone mention orange quality items, and other survivors might not even know that there was an orange quality after gold quality, let alone red quality. The secrets regarding items and talent were indeed difficult to explain clearly. To change the subject as quickly as possible, Wu Di instructed into the air, "Xiaoxi, proceed at full speed while ensuring safety." "Received, Commander. Advancing at 300 kilometers per hour." As Xiaoxi's voice sounded, the RV instantly accelerated and sped forward, yet the people inside the vehicle did not feel any sensation of acceleration. Just as Wu Di thought he had brushed it off and could have some peace for a while, Shu Kexin suddenly spoke up urgently, her tone filled with anxiety. "Stop! Stop quickly!" This sentence broke the calm inside the cabin, and the other 4 people in the vehicle all looked at Shu Kexin with strange gazes, their eyes full of confusion. Shu Kexin didn't care about their gazes at all, her tone urgent and tinged with helplessness. "Don't you know that moving at night is dangerous? There are 5 people in the team now. The more people there are, the greater the crisis encountered." She paused, her tone becoming more urgent, and continued without stopping. "Also, you are driving at such a fast speed, if we encounter danger, we are done for." After speaking, seeing the 4 of them still looking at her with strange gazes, Shu Kexin couldn't help but feel a bit flustered, and added another question. "Why are you looking at me like that? Stop the car." Lin Shi was also looking at Shu Kexin helplessly, knowing in her heart that Shu Kexin was indeed thinking of the whole team. She turned her head to look at Wu Di, with some curiosity in her eyes, actually. They had never asked Wu Di about the specific situation of the RV before, and had asked Xiaoxi in private, but Xiaoxi said her authority was insufficient to view it. Especially after coming out of the realm this morning, the cabin didn't seem to feel any vibrations from the outside world at all, which made her increasingly curious. Wu Di was truly having a headache. He realized that this Shu Kexin had too many questions. "If you have any questions, go ask Xiaoxi later." Wu Di thought carefully for a moment, and felt there was no particular need to hide it from them. At the very least, letting them know the strength of the vehicle would make them feel more at ease. After speaking, Wu Di turned his head back, his gaze falling on the vast snowy night outside the vehicle, and said no more. "Big brother Wu Di, I'm going to sleep." Lin Yue was the most excited one at this moment. She ran directly towards the bedroom, and as she passed Su Wanwan, she grabbed her wrist. "Sister Wanwan, come quickly, let's go chat with Xiaoxi. Also, what kind of movies do you like to watch? Let's watch them together." Chapter 150, A Change in Mindset. Shu Kexin watched as Lin Yu ran past her, carefree and unbothered, while dragging the helpless-looking Su Wanwan along with her. She had no choice but to turn her head and look at Lin Shi beside her, feeling rather resigned. Lin Shi gave her a faint smile and said, "I'm going to sleep with Lin Yu as well. Why don't you keep Big Brother Wu Di company for the night watch? If there's anything you want to ask, you can ask him then." With that, Lin Shi turned and walked into the bedroom. She also harbored many questions in her heart and wanted to find Xiaoxi to properly ask about the status of the vehicle. You... I... Shu Kexin stood frozen, speechless for a moment. She suddenly realized that in this team, she seemed to be the only one constantly worried and anxious about everything, while everyone else acted as if they didn't care. As if the survival game crisis before them had nothing to do with them at all. Watching the three of them walk into the bedroom one after another, Shu Kexin took a deep breath, suppressed the complex emotions in her heart, and slowly walked over to sit in the passenger seat. Wudi turned his head to glance at Shu Kexin sitting in the passenger seat, said nothing, and leaned back against the seat to close his eyes and rest. Now that Xiaoxi's vehicle-mounted full-domain scanning radar had returned to normal, there was no need for him to keep a constant watch on the outside. After sitting down, Shu Kexin also fell into silence, her gaze fixed outside the vehicle. The silence lasted for a long time. Finally, Shu Kexin was the first to break it, her tone tinged with hesitation. "Can I ask you a question?" Wudi didn't even lift his eyelids. "Go ahead. I can tell you anything that I'm able to answer." That cloud-piercing bow." Shu Kexin stopped abruptly here, her fingertips tightening slightly. After hesitating for a moment, she plucked up the courage to continue. "That cloud-piercing bow, was it traded to me by you?" In the end, Shu Kexin asked the question that had been buried in her heart for a long time. Ever since she joined this team and learned that his name was Wudi, she immediately thought of the person in her friend list who had once traded the cloud-piercing bow to her. The name was also Wudi. At first, she hadn't connected the two people. But seeing everything today, she couldn't help but suspect again that these two might be the same person. After all, someone who could trade a purple-quality bow and arrow in the early stages of this survival game must have considerable strength. "Yes." Wudi responded to Shu Kexin's question without a moment's hesitation, his tone flat, as if he were just talking about something trivial. "Ah? It really is you?" Shu Kexin looked up at Wudi sharply, her eyes filled with shock. She was far more agitated than Wudi had imagined, and her voice was even trembling. "Is there anything strange about that?" Wudi finally turned his head to look at the shocked Shu Kexin, a hint of confusion in his eyes. Shu Kexin opened her mouth, but for a moment she didn't know what to say. 1,000 words were stuck in her throat, yet she couldn't utter a single one. The RV fell into silence once again. After a long while, Wudi was the first to break the silence. "The cloud-piercing bow will stay with me for now. When I confirm that you are not in danger and do not have any ulterior motives, I will return it to you." He knew clearly that the cloud-piercing bow came with a locking function, and its power was not to be underestimated. Although the three of them might not necessarily be injured by the bow and arrow right now, keeping the cloud-piercing bow for the time being was undoubtedly the safest choice, in the spirit of taking precautions. Upon hearing this, Shu Kexin waved her hands hurriedly, her tone still tinged with agitation. I don't have any such thoughts. Thank you for saving me twice." After struggling for a moment, Shu Kexin raised her head, looking at Wudi with sincere eyes, her tone filled with gratitude. "No need." Wudi shook his head. As he spoke, he unconsciously glanced at the lucky pendant above the center console, his tone remaining flat. "The first time was a trade. Fair and square. The second time, you can also consider it a trade. It's just that it hasn't been settled yet." Shu Kexin looked at him and opened her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. Should she tell Wu Dai that ever since she found out he was the person who traded the cloud-piercing bow to her, she hadn't been very opposed to staying here? But if she said that, what would that make of her previous cautious and guarded behavior? In the end, 1,000 words turned into silence, and the RV fell into dead silence once again. Time slipped away bit by bit, and in the blink of an eye, it was midnight. Wudi remained leaning against the driver's seat, appearing to be resting with his eyes closed. But in reality, he was constantly monitoring the movements outside, waiting for the night monster attacks. However, until 3 in the morning, the outside remained completely calm, with no signs of any monsters appearing, as if the monsters for tonight had all vanished into thin air. In the end, Shu Kexin could not resist the onset of drowsiness. Her eyelids grew heavier and heavier until she finally leaned against the passenger seat and drifted off into a hazy sleep. Time passed in a flash to 5 in the morning. Lin Shi, Lin Yue, and Suan Wan walked out of the bedroom one after another. Seeing Shu Kexin fast asleep in the passenger seat and Wu Di still sitting in the driver's seat, the three of them tacitly remained silent and began to prepare breakfast. Lin Yu seemed quite excited and wanted to step forward to say something, but Lin Shi glared at her, forcing Lin Yu to sit quietly on the sofa. Shu Kexin didn't wake up until Lin Shi called her, rubbing her eyes as she came to. A flush instantly appeared on her face, and her tone was tinged with embarrassment. I'm sorry. I accidentally fell asleep last night. Last night, we didn't encounter any danger, did we? Lin Shi smiled at her gently. It's okay. Next time, you don't need to keep watching. If there's any situation, Xiaoxi will definitely be the first to discover it and notify us. Come over and eat breakfast. Shu Kexin nodded. And just like that, they finished breakfast in a slightly awkward atmosphere. Time ticked away second by second, and in the blink of an eye, it was exactly 6 in the morning. Ding, the system announcement interface popped up. Chapter 151, Flood Disaster. Desperate Situation. Global announcement, final stage of the violent storm, flood disaster. Desperate situation has been initiated. The water level on the road will continue to rise rapidly. There is a safe zone ahead. This scenario will dynamically spawn disaster monsters with corresponding strength based on vehicle points. Wu Dai and the others in the RV saw the system announcement pop up, and their expressions instantly became grave and ugly. Only Shu Kexin showed little reaction, still looking somewhat bewildered. What's wrong with you guys? Shu Kexin asked, seeing the terrifyingly grim expressions on Wu Di, Lin Shi, and the others. In her view, this stage of the flood was not much different from the initial lava road. Furthermore, their RV could reach speeds of 300 kilometers per hour, so even with the flood blocking the way, there shouldn't be any major problems. Pay attention to the situation and keep an eye on the communication channel. Wu Di's tone was grave. After saying just that, he walked back to the driver's seat with a grim expression, his gaze fixed tightly on the road conditions outside the vehicle. Is there anything I can help with? Seeing Wu Di walk away with a grim face, and observing that Su Wanwan and sisters Lin Shi and Lin Yu were also wearing grave expressions, Shu Kexin immediately understood that there was likely some danger she was unaware of, so she quickly asked. Su Wanwan forced a reluctant smile. Big Brother Wu Di will definitely be able to solve it. We just need to follow Big Brother Wu Di's arrangements. After saying this, she sat down quietly, opened the communication channel, and carefully monitored every message within it. Lin Yu gripped Lin Shi's sleeve tightly, her voice trembling slightly. Sister, our RV is so powerful, and we have so many formidable parts, we'll definitely be fine, right? Seeing that Lin Yu was clearly frightened by the announcement, Lin Shi quickly reached out to hug her, gently patting her back to comfort her. You have to trust your big brother, Wu Di. All this time, no matter what danger we've encountered, haven't we always made it through safely? It will be the same this time. At this moment, Wu Di looked through the RV window, his expression becoming increasingly grim. The sky outside was completely shrouded by thick, ink-like black clouds that were impossibly dense. The sky, which had been about to brighten, now showed no light at all, as if it had plunged back into the dead of night, so oppressive that it made it hard to breathe. And the blizzard that had lasted for days had completely changed its form. Cold rain mixed with goose-feather-sized snowflakes poured down. Even more absurdly, hail the size of pigeon eggs was mixed in. He looked through the rearview mirror and saw that the road behind them was almost identical to the scene on the last day of the previous disaster. It was now completely submerged by murky floodwaters, and the water level was still rising, slowly spreading in the direction of the RV. What made his heart sink even further was that the road ahead was also covered by accumulated water mixed with ice and snow. Where are the monsters? Is this the part that I've felt was wrong all this time? Wu Di muttered to himself, his fingertips tightening slightly. He dared not imagine what kind of terrifying monsters they would encounter with their 358,600 vehicle points. One had to know that in the communication channel right now, the highest vehicle points of other survivors did not exceed 5,000. There was a world of difference between the two. However, he observed with full concentration for nearly an hour, but never discovered any traces of monsters. The only change was that the weather outside had become increasingly exaggerated. Not only were rain, snow, and hail raging together, but they were also accompanied by howling gales. The wind whipped up broken branches, gravel, and other unknown objects from the roadside, constantly slamming them against the RV. On the road, obstacles were constantly being carried by the rain and ice snow, piling up in the middle of the road. Fortunately, the Titan armor-piercing ram at the front of the RV was strong enough to push aside all obstacles along the way. But Wu Di could still clearly feel that the RV's speed had slowed down slightly, clearly affected by the resistance. Moreover, even though the RV maintained a high-speed advance of 300 kilometers per hour, the flood behind them still followed closely, not falling behind in the slightest. The road ahead was also constantly submerged by accumulated water, with no end in sight, as if they would never drive out of this expanse of water. Could it be more than just monsters, or even natural disasters affected by points? Wu Di's heart was full of questions at this moment, and a strong sense of unease welled up. The calmer it was, the more he felt that the hidden danger behind it was far more terrifying than he had imagined. At this moment, the interior of the RV became exceptionally quiet and oppressive. Shu Kexin was completely unaware of the danger involved, and could only sit quietly. Watching the expressions of the others, she felt increasingly apprehensive. Su Wanwan, Lin Shi, and Lin Yuwei were all staring at the communication channel, not daring to relax in the slightest. However, at this moment, most survivors were fully engaged in fleeing for their lives, unable to look after themselves, so the information in the communication channel was significantly less than usual. But even so, the hottest topic in the communication channel was still the discussion about that anonymous player at the top of the vehicle leaderboard. Various comments popped up one after another. "Holy crap! Look at the vehicle leaderboard. When did that big shot at number 1 get over 35000 points? Hey, the higher the points, the faster you die. Didn't you read the announcement? With his points, he's probably doomed this time." Don't say that. 350,000 points. Who knows what equipment this big shot has? Maybe he has a way to deal with the flood and the monsters. Worry about yourself, damn it. If you have time to pay attention to others, you'd better look after yourself. Don't end up dead before the other guy even has an accident. Is anyone here with this big shot? Maybe if he has an accident, we can pick up some good loot. Fortune favors the bold, brothers. Lin Yu stared at the comments in the communication channel and complained, "Sister, these people are too mean. This world is just like this. We don't need to care about what others think." Lin Shi comforted her from the side. Chapter 152, Sea-Splitting Great Demon. At this moment, Wu Di was constantly keeping an eye on the situation outside. Although he knew that Xiaoxi would be the first to detect and alert him of any developments, he still had a feeling that the coming crisis would exceed his expectations. Time drifted by slowly in the silence. Until around 8 a.m., the scene outside remained unchanged. The rain, snow, and hail continued to rage, and the floodwaters kept rising, yet there was no sign of any monsters. Why is our situation completely different from what everyone else is encountering? Do we really not need to do anything? At this moment, Shu Kexin finally realized something was wrong and asked Su Wanwan, who was sitting next to her, in a low voice. Su Wanwan turned her head and smiled gently at Shu Kexin. "Don't worry, Big Brother Wu Di will definitely solve it." Shu Kexin was choked up by Su Wanwan's words. She finally understood that this Su Wanwan was simply a die-hard fan of Wu Di. Could she not see that the crisis they were facing now was obviously far more absurd than what other survivors were dealing with? With the level of absurdity in the weather outside, she had been staring at the communication channel for so long and had never seen any other survivors encounter such an outrageous situation. With no other choice, Shu Kexin could only cast her gaze toward Lin Shi, who was sitting opposite her, hoping to get a reasonable response from her. Lin Shi seemed to sense Shu Kexin's gaze, raised her head to look at her, and asked in a calm tone, "Then what can you do right now?" Shu Kexin was choked up by Lin Shi's words again, silently complaining in her heart, Why are these people not only strange but also so hurtful with their words? But upon further reflection it seemed that, as Lin Shi said, there was nothing they could do right now but wait quietly. In this long wait, time slipped away quietly, and in the blink of an eye, it was 10:30 a.m. Lin Yui suddenly stood up and walked quickly to the side of the driver's seat, her tone carrying a hint of urgency. Big Brother Wu Di, many people in the communication channel have started encountering monsters. There are all kinds of strange types. Some say they are octopus-shaped, and others say they are fishman-shaped. Most are aquatic monsters, but they aren't very powerful. She paused and added, "Also, Big Brother Wu Di, do you remember those fist-sized hornet monsters we encountered that night? Someone has encountered them now too. They all say that the hardest part right now is the weather and the roads, which are too difficult to traverse, while the monsters aren't actually that formidable." "It's fine, don't worry." While listening to Lin Yue, Wu Di kept his gaze locked tightly outside the window, not moving an inch. He heard the worry in Lin Yue's words and offered a soft word of comfort. I trust Big Brother Wu Di. I'll be right here, and if there's any update on the communication channel, I'll tell you immediately." Lin Yue seemed to be infected by Wu Di's confidence. Her tone instantly became firm. After saying this, she sat in the passenger seat, lowering her head to focus intently on the information in the communication channel. "The monsters have appeared. So what about the monster we are supposed to encounter?" Wu Di remained calm on the surface, but his expression grew increasingly solemn, and impatience had long since welled up inside him. Monsters weren't scary. What was scary was this unknown weight, not knowing what level of terrifying existence they were about to face. The entire morning was spent in such a silent, oppressive atmosphere. Apart from Lin Yu occasionally informing Wu Di about the situation in the communication channel, nothing unusual happened. By the time they had finished a simple lunch, it was still calm outside the vehicle. The weather and floodwaters outside remained unchanged, yet inside the vehicle they were completely unaffected by the outside world, remaining warm and stable. As long as one didn't look out the window, one couldn't even feel that a devastating flood was raging outside. Time drifted by slowly, and in the blink of an eye, it was 13:39. Just then, Xiao Shi's notification sound suddenly rang out. "Commander, a sea-splitting great demon has been detected approaching from directly behind." Accompanying Xiao Shi's notification, the center console screen immediately displayed the monster's attribute description. Sea-splitting great demon. Legend has it that 1,000 years ago, a deep-sea behemoth swallowed a meteorite fragment that had fallen into the ocean floor, dying because it could not withstand the high-energy radiation and thunderous power within the fragment. Its corpse sank into a deep-sea rift, and over 100 years, it fused and mutated with the meteorite core, eventually reorganizing into this mindless monster. It possesses neither divinity nor wisdom, only an endless hunger for energy. It is a pure calamity wandering in the abyss. Standing height, 120 meters. When its tentacles are fully extended, it covers a diameter of over 400 meters. Weight, approximately 85,000 tons. Core skills. 1. Annihilation force field. The great demon spreads its tentacles and releases an invisible energy field. This force field can forcibly extract all forms of energy from its surroundings. 2. Thunderstorm tentacle strike. Releases the excess absorbed energy through its tentacles, forming a large-scale chain lightning strike. Weakness. The energy circulation within the sea-splitting great demon is extremely unstable. The crystal core located in the center of its head is its only weakness. Chapter 153. A Desperate Gamble. The moment Xiao Shi's warning sounded, everyone inside the vehicle looked up at the central control screen. However, upon seeing the description of the sea-splitting great demon, everyone's expressions changed drastically. "Big Brother Wu Di." Lin Yu's voice was tight with tension. Wu Di didn't reply but looked back through the rearview mirror. Despite the raging rain and snow outside, he could clearly see an enormous shadow looming in the previously empty space behind them, slowly approaching. "Damn it, this thing is way too big." Wu Di's expression was incredibly grim. He had known they would encounter terrifying monsters, but seeing that mountain-like shadow actually appear still made his heart sink. I absolutely cannot let it hit us. This was the first thought that flashed through Wu Di's mind. He trusted the RV's defenses, but once such a massive monster launched an attack, the RV would inevitably be jolted off course. If the RV left the highway, everything would truly be over. Xiaoxi, dump all the 30mm autocannon ammunition. Even though Wu Di suspected it might be useless, he still wanted to try. Understood, Commander. Following Xiaoxi's acknowledgement, the 30mm autocannon on the roof of the RV immediately opened fire. In just over 10 seconds, all 120 rounds were expended. Commander, all ammunition has been expended. Detection shows the sea-splitting Great Demon is still continuing to approach. Before Wu Di could speak, Xiaoxi informed him of the result. The faces of everyone inside the RV darkened completely. One had to understand that this 30mm autocannon had slain countless monsters along the way without meeting a match. Yet now, after firing everything, the sea-splitting Great Demon was actually unharmed. Wu Di's mind raced. Getting out of the car for close combat was absolutely impossible. Setting aside whether he could win, just the rising floodwaters behind them meant he couldn't rashly abandon the vehicle and go out. The only things he could use right now were the breaching annihilation warhead he had obtained earlier and the RPG-7 heavy slaughter rocket launcher. But since even the 30mm autocannon was ineffective, Wu Di dismissed the one-time-use rocket launcher without a second thought. As he was thinking, Xiaoxi's notification sounded again. Commander, detected rapid energy depletion in the vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor. It is estimated that the vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor will completely shut down in 20 minutes. Hearing this, Wu Di's expression changed wildly. Since installing the HX-9 ion thruster, the vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor could originally only maintain operation for 7 days, and now it was continuously losing energy. Once the reactor shut down, not only would the core power be ruined, but even the newly acquired HX-9 ion thruster would completely fail. He clearly remembered the note on the HX-9 ion thruster. Once cooled, it can never be restarted. The other 4 people in the cabin also heard the notification clearly. Their expressions were solemn, but no one spoke. Xu Kexin wanted to step forward, but was quickly pulled back by Lin Shi. Lin Shi knew that this situation was already beyond their ability to interfere. Everything depended on Wu Di, and Wu Di, at this moment, was staring intently at the attributes of the breaching annihilation warhead in his space. Breaching annihilation warhead. Special item. Strategic-grade heavy overload core. Detonation time can be set freely. Upon detonation, it releases violent annihilation energy, forming a destruction zone with a diameter of 1,000 meters. Targets within the 0 to 300-meter core zone are directly annihilated, ignoring armor, shields, and building defenses. Targets within the 300 to 700-meter range suffer devastating explosive and high-temperature shocks. Targets within the 700 to 1,000-meter range suffer severe damage from intense tremors and shock waves. It possesses overwhelming destructive effects against fortress fortifications, heavy units, and dense clusters, serving as the ultimate strategic-grade deterrent breaching explosive device. He had taken this breaching annihilation warhead out before. It was about 1.5 meters tall, less than half a meter in diameter, and weighed around 500 kilograms. With his current physique and the boost from shooting mastery, he was confident he could accurately throw this warhead in front of the sea-splitting Great Demon. However, what he was uncertain about now was exactly how powerful this breaching annihilation warhead was. Looking at the sea-splitting Great Demon only 700 meters away from the RV on the central control screen, Wu Di wasn't worried about whether the breaching annihilation warhead could destroy the sea-splitting Great Demon. He was worried that if the power was too great, the resulting impact would affect the RV. Even though the RV had the protection of the red quality primal construct, Emperor's divine armor, he still worried that the violent impact caused by the breaching annihilation warhead would cause the vehicle to shift. Commander, vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor energy loss at 10%. Whether we live or die depends on you. Hearing Xiaoxi's prompt, Woody had no way out now. He could only pin all his hopes on this ultimate warhead. Commander detected the sea-splitting great demon releasing a thunderstorm attack. Just as Woody made up his mind, Xiaoxi's warning sounded again. Chapter 1 for 54. That's all it is. Xiaoxi's notification sound rang out. Everyone inside the carriage saw the originally dark sky suddenly light up as countless bolts of purple-blue lightning frantically intertwined and exploded within the clouds, as if the entire firmament were being torn apart. Dense electric arcs formed a massive web of thunder that crashed down toward the RV's location. Shu Kexen's face was deathly pale, and her lips trembled as she muttered to herself, "It's over. It's really over this time. Why am I so unlucky?" Immediately after, Xiaoxi's notification sounded again. "Commander, a thunderstorm attack has been detected. The armor's kinetic energy recovery mechanism has been activated. Currently, there is no corresponding electrical energy storage equipment on the vehicle. The kinetic energy will dissipate naturally." Su Wanwan, Lin Shi, and Lin Yue all breathed a sigh of relief. They had already learned about the capabilities of the primal construct, Emperor's divine armor, through Xiaoxi last night, but having never personally experienced such a perilous scene, they exchanged lingering glances of fear, their faces still carrying traces of tension. Meanwhile, Shu Kexen stared at the three of them with a dazed expression. Her mouth opened as if to say something, but she couldn't utter a single word for a long time. She knew nothing about what was happening. At this moment, only one thought remained in her mind. I survived. Woody knew that time no longer allowed for any hesitation. "Stay back," he said as he walked toward the center of the vehicle while opening the skylight he had previously left when installing the 30mm autocannon. The others in the carriage immediately retreated to a distance. As soon as the skylight opened, freezing rain and snow mixed with pigeon egg-sized hailstones instantly poured into the carriage. Woody climbed straight through the skylight onto the roof, with only half his body poking out. Inside the carriage, he had only felt the weather was bad, but once he was actually in the middle of the storm, he truly felt the might of heaven and earth. The rain and snow nearly obscured his vision, and the gale whipped gravel, broken branches, and debris harshly against him. Fortunately, his physical attributes had long since far exceeded those of an ordinary person. Otherwise, this harsh environment alone would have been enough to instantly inflict serious injuries on a normal person. Wu Dai could barely make out the shadow of the sea-splitting great demon in the distance. Its mountain-like silhouette loomed across the curtain of rain, and even from several hundred meters away, it still brought a suffocating sense of overwhelming pressure. He directly took out a breaching annihilation warhead from his space and held it steadily in his hands. Ignoring the lashing storm and hail, his gaze locked firmly onto the slowly approaching great demon. It wasn't until Xiaoxi's fourth notification came from inside the carriage. "Commander, the vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor's energy depletion has reached 40%, that he finally managed to vaguely capture the location of the sea-splitting great demon's head. At this point, the distance was less than 400 meters, but the weather was far too severe. The curtain of rain and the gale blocked everything. Wu Di could only see a massive, distorted dark shadow with countless thick tentacles flailing wildly in the water and air. In the center of its head, a faint glimmer of light flickered in and out of the clouds and mist. Its overall silhouette was hideous and blurred, like a nightmare crawling out of the abyss. Wu Di took a deep breath and set the breaching annihilation warhead to detonate in 3 seconds on the system interface. He didn't know what the result of the explosion would be, but if he didn't take a gamble now, the only thing waiting for them would be the complete destruction of the vehicle. Without the slightest hesitation, Wu Di exerted force with both arms and hurled the 500-kilogram warhead fiercely toward the head of the sea-splitting great demon less than 400 meters away. He then quickly ducked back into the vehicle and slammed the skylight shut with a bang. The people in the carriage saw him return to the driver's seat less than 2 minutes after going up. Before they could ask anything, a world-shattering roar suddenly erupted from outside. Everyone instinctively crowded toward the windows to look out. Wu Di also looked back through the rearview mirror. Between the floodwaters and the clouds behind them, A ball of blindingly white lights suddenly exploded. Violent annihilation energy spread frantically from the point of impact, instantly swallowing the entire curtain of rain. An area over 1 kilometer in diameter was completely enveloped by the intense light. The shockwave kicked up towering floods, and the clouds were forcibly dispersed, leaving a massive hole. The ground and the water surface cracked simultaneously, and even the air seemed to be scorched and distorted. Between heaven and earth, only the piercing white light and the deafening roar remained. Before Wu Di could think further, Xiaoxi's notification suddenly rang out. "Commander, the sea-splitting Great Demon has disappeared." Seeing the red dot representing the Great Demon completely vanish from the radar, Wu Di's tense nerves finally relaxed. "So that's all it is. I thought it would be more impressive, haha." He turned back and smiled at the four of them. Hearing the notification and Wu Di's words, the four people in the carriage finally breathed a collective sigh of relief. Lin Yu's face lit up with joy, and she was just about to speak. But Xiaoxi's notification sounded once again. "Commander, a wave impact has been detected and is about to arrive." Chapter 155, Crisis Averted. Hearing Xiaoxi's warning, the hearts of the people in the carriage sank, and their hearts leaped into their throats as they instinctively looked out the window. Their previously relaxed expressions were instantly replaced by gravity, every face etched with tension and unease. Through the rearview mirror, Wu Di saw it clearly. The flood behind them was kicked up by the shockwave, forming a towering wave dozens of meters high. It was like a moving wall of water, carrying broken building remains, snapped timber, and debris, surging forward through the rain, snow, and hail. Even through the thick carriage walls and the obscured visibility, that world-ending sense of oppression still penetrated the vehicle, making it hard to breathe, as if the water wall would completely swallow them and the RV in the next second. "Xiaoxi, can we go any faster?" Wu Di stared at the giant wave closing in through the rearview mirror, his face so dark it could drip water. He knew better than anyone that such an impact, even with the RV's primal construct, Emperor's divine armor reinforcement preventing fatal damage, would surely wash them off the highway. Once they left the road surface and the vehicle was damaged, they would be left in this flood forever. "Commander, we are currently at the limit speed. Impact is estimated in 10 seconds. Xiaoxi's sweet warning tone remained steady, without a hint of emotion. Yet, it only made the sense of oppression in the carriage grow heavier. Wu Di gripped the steering wheel tightly, with only one urgent thought in his mind. What can I do now? How can I avoid this crisis? He rapidly searched his mind for any possible way to break the situation, but time was too short, and the wave was approaching with terrifying speed. Any struggle seemed pale and weak before this overwhelming power. At this moment, he had no choice but to place all his hopes on the RV's defensive performance and its limit speed. Time flew by in a mix of dead silence and panic. In just a few short seconds, the towering wave crossed hundreds of meters, leaving the people in the vehicle no room to react as it crashed toward the RV, instantly enveloping the body in a murky curtain of water. Shu Kexen's pupils constricted as she watched the world outside instantly become shrouded in water, her heart nearly leaping out of her chest. She instinctively grabbed the handrail beside her with all her might to steady herself, while screaming at Su Wanwan and the other two. "What are you standing there for? The impact is coming. Hold on tight." But despite Shu Kexen's urgent shouting, although Su Wanwan, Lin Shi, and Lin Yu looked pale and fearful, gripping the edges of their clothes, they did not panic. They didn't reach for fixed objects, but instead slowly sat back in their seats. Though there was fear in their eyes, there was also a hidden trust in Wu Di, and a faint confidence in surviving the crisis, as they silently waited for the result. Shu Kexen was fuming at the three's reaction, but she could barely protect herself now and had no time to urge them further. She used all her strength to fix her body to the handrail. As soon as she finished speaking, she squeezed her eyes shut and gritted her teeth, waiting for the devastating impact to arrive. However, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Time passed bit by bit, yet the expected violent impact did not come. The carriage remained stable and warm, without even a slight tremor. Doubts rose in Shu Kexen's heart, and she slowly opened her eyes to look out the window. Outside was already a murky world of water. The giant wave carrying debris rolled frantically around the vehicle. The RV was like a small boat in a stormy sea, being pushed rapidly forward by the rushing current. The windows were covered in splashing water and mud. She could clearly see the traces of the water rushing past and hear the roar of the waves and the dull thuds of debris hitting the vehicle. Yet the interior remained steady, as if completely isolated from the towering waves outside. She froze for a moment and instinctively looked at Wu Di, only to see him staring intently out the window, his expression so grim it hadn't loosened in the slightest. "What's going on? We weren't blown away?" Shu Kexen lowered her voice, her tone full of confusion and disbelief, her gaze locked onto the water curtain outside. Wu Di didn't respond. Through the rearview mirror, he had seen everything that just happened behind them. At the edge of the highway outside, a section of building wreckage had somehow remained, half submerged in the flood and half exposed, like a solid pivot. Just as the RV was about to be lifted off the road by the giant wave, the side of the vehicle happened to hit this wreckage. The massive impact was steadily buffered and dissipated by the debris, and the RV only jolted slightly before using the push of the current and its own limit speed to adjust its direction with the flow, steadily hugging the edge of the highway as it continued to speed forward, never deviating from the road surface for a second. He knew in his heart that it was this unexpectedly appearing wreckage that allowed them to narrowly escape the crisis of being washed away. Just as Wu Di breathed a slight sigh of relief, Xiaoxi's voice rang out at the right time. "Commander, we have successfully exited the explosion impact zone. Current speed is maintained at the limit, moving away from the danger zone." Only then did Wu Di slowly let out a breath, his tense shoulders dropping slightly. He turned his head to look at everyone, his gaze pausing briefly on Shu Kexen before quickly moving away, his tone softening. "We're safe for now." Su Wanwan and the others finally came to their senses, the fear on their faces gradually fading, replaced by the relief of having survived a disaster. Lin Yu even couldn't help but have her eyes redden as she whispered, "Big brother Wu Di, did we survive?" Shu Kexen looked at the still steady carriage and then at the disappearing water outside, the confusion in her heart growing deeper. So what exactly happened? Chapter 156. Anything is possible. Wu Di finally breathed a genuine sigh of relief. Since stepping into this cruel world of survival, aside from that one life-and-death struggle at night where he nearly lost his life, this was the first time he had faced such a lethal crisis since his strength had increased. Previously, he had once thought he was ahead of everyone else, believing that with his own strength and the support of the RV, he could handle any predicament and wouldn't encounter a crisis he couldn't solve. But after everything that had just happened, he was completely awake. There was never absolute safety in the survival world. One had to remain vigilant at all times. A slight lapse in judgment could lead to total disaster and staying here forever. Thinking of this, Wu Di's thoughts drifted back to the desperate situation just now. That perfectly timed appearance of the building wreckage was too coincidental, so coincidental that it didn't seem like an accident. Could this be the effect brought about by Shu Kexen's talent? Wu Di pondered secretly, his heart tightening. He didn't dare imagine what would have happened if he hadn't saved Shu Kexen or invited her to join the team. At this moment, they would likely have been swept off the highway by the giant waves, their vehicle destroyed, and ultimately trapped forever in this flood with no chance of survival. At this thought, Wu Di subconsciously looked back, his gaze falling on Shu Kexen. "What are you looking at me for?" Shu Kexen instantly caught his gaze. Remembering Wu Di's hurried glance when the crisis was resolved, she immediately frowned and glared back fiercely. She secretly speculated that Wu Di probably thought she had behaved too cowardly and worriedly just now. But she hadn't known this RV had such powerful performance. Despite that massive impact earlier, she hadn't felt a single vibration inside the cabin. If it weren't for the scenery outside the window and the lingering roar in her ears, she might have thought nothing had happened at all. "Big brother Wu Di, have we really passed this crisis?" There won't be any more danger later, right? Lin Yu finally fully recovered from her panic and jogged over to sit in the passenger seat, a hint of lingering fear still visible in her eyes. There should be no danger for the time being. Wu Di shook his head gently, a trace of uncertainty in his tone. He didn't dare let his guard down. No one knew what other accidents might occur in the next second in this unpredictable survival world. On the other side, Lin Shi and Su Wanwan had already begun silently cleaning up the rainwater and mud that had poured in when Wu Di opened the skylight earlier. Shu Kexin looked at the few people before her. Everyone had their own tasks to do and seemed exceptionally coordinated, only she felt like an extra person, out of place. Thinking of this, Shu Kexin took a deep breath, stood up, walked step by step to the side of the driver's seat, and stopped. What's wrong? Wu Di noticed the movement beside him and turned his head to look at Shu Kexin standing there, a hint of surprise on his face. Shu Kexin gripped the hem of her clothes and took another deep breath. Her tone carried a bit of hesitation and a faint, hard-to-detect determination. She paused, then plucked up the courage to say, "Is there anything I can help with?" "No need. Just stay quiet." Looking at Shu Kexin suddenly volunteering, Wu Di felt even more puzzled, but spoke bluntly. In fact, it wasn't just Shu Kexin. The same applied to Su Wanwan, Lin Shi, and Lin Yu. In Wu Di's view, they were all support-type teammates. Everyone had their own area of expertise, and it was enough for them to perform their respective duties. The current Shu Kexin was the same in his eyes. After today's events, he truly understood that everyone's talent had its own unique aspects. If it weren't for Shu Kexin, the four of them might have really met their end here today. But Wu Di's simple words took on a different meaning in Shu Kexin's ears, as if he were denying her value and thinking she was useless and couldn't do anything. "Don't look down on me. I can do anything." Shu Kexin got anxious, her voice rising slightly. Wu Di was stunned by her sudden reaction and looked at Shu Kexin in surprise, not expecting her to have such a strong response. Being stared at by Wu Di with such a strange gaze, Shu Kexin's cheeks instantly flushed. That won't do. Besides, you already have them here." As soon as the words left her mouth, she regretted it, feeling that she was talking nonsense, and the more she explained, the messier it got. "Sister Zhu, what are you two talking about?" Just then, a crisp voice sounded. Shu Kexin snapped her head around to see Lin Yu, who had walked up to her at some point, looking at her with a curious and somewhat strange gaze, her eyes full of inquiry. Chapter 157. Hub City. Wu Di was truly speechless at this moment. Aside from Su Wanwan, did the rest of them see him as some kind of sex-starved demon? Their imaginations were ridiculously wild. He shot a helpless glance at Shu Kexin, then looked at Lin Yu, who had leaned in with a face full of curiosity and simply spoke up. "You can be like them, and pay more attention to the communication channel and the trading channel to see if there are any special blueprints or talent fragments. If there's nothing important, don't disturb me for now." After saying that, Wu Di withdrew his gaze and refocused on the road conditions ahead. Seeing Wu Di's cold attitude and how he ignored her, Shu Kexin then caught sight of Lin Yu beside her, staring at her intently with curiosity. A surge of irritation welled up in her heart, and she grumbled inwardly. What's there to be so smug about? Isn't it just having a bit more strength and a better vehicle? Since you said that, this old lady will just eat your food and drink your water here without doing any work. Let's see who gets anxious first. Thinking this way, Shu Kexin immediately felt much better. She turned to Lin Yu and squeezed out a smile, her tone softening. "Little sister Yu, didn't you say yesterday that there are movies to watch in the RV? Teach me how. There's nothing else to do right now anyway." "Huh? Sister Zhu, right now, might not be very good, right?" Lin Yu was stunned by the question and responded in a low voice. Her eyes subconsciously flickered toward the gray sky outside the window, and she stole another glance at Wu Di, who was focused on driving. Although she was usually carefree and simple-minded, she had just escaped a life-and-death crisis. She still had that much sense. At this moment, she really wasn't in the mood to watch a movie. Shu Kexin hadn't expected that even the seemingly heartless Lin Yu would say that. She instantly felt like a deflated balloon, all interest gone, and sighed helplessly. Forget it. I'll go help tidy up. In fact, her original intention was just to put on a show for Wu Di to prove she wasn't just a freeloader. But since Lin Yui wouldn't cooperate, she couldn't keep up the act and had to bite the bullet and go help. Watching Shu Kexen walk toward the back of the carriage, Lin Yui quickly sat back in the passenger seat. She skillfully opened the communication channel, browsing the messages while occasionally stealing glances at Wu Di. The next part of the journey was unexpectedly smooth. Time passed slowly in the calm. Before they knew it, the clock on the dashboard showed it was nearly 15. At that moment, Wu Di's gaze suddenly froze. At the end of the road ahead, that familiar light curtain emitting a soft white glow appeared again, exactly like the one they had encountered before. "Is it finally over?" Wu Di murmured to himself, his tone carrying a trace of imperceptible fatigue and relief. Without stopping for a moment, the RV drove straight into the light curtain. Almost the instant the vehicle entered, a familiar white light enveloped the entire carriage, and everyone instinctively closed their eyes. When they opened their eyes again, the scene before them had been completely transformed. The previous heavy rain and signs of flooding had vanished without a trace, and a massive skyscraper piercing the sky stood at the center of their vision. That skyscraper reached into the clouds, exuding a strong sense of pressure, even from a distance. Its silver-gray exterior walls shimmered with a cold metallic luster. The surface was smooth and clean, with sharp fluid lines and no redundant decoration. It was like a silent steel giant standing firmly in the center of their view, making it impossible to look away. The people inside the vehicle were instantly stunned by the sight. They crowded near the driver's cabin, clinging to the windows and peering out, their eyes filled with curiosity and wonder. Just as everyone was overwhelmed by the skyscraper, a section of the building's exterior wall suddenly lit up. A row of large golden characters slowly emerged, clear and striking: "Welcome, survivors, to Point Hub City. Here, points are the foundation of survival. To possess points is to possess everything. Big Brother Wu Di, is this a safe zone like before? Can we go down and shop?" Lin Yu was the first to react. Her voice trembled with excitement as she gripped the edge of the window tightly, her eyes sparkling with thrill. Back in the safe zone, many things she wanted to exchange for had been blocked by her sister. Thinking of their current points on the vehicle leaderboard, Lin Yu couldn't contain her inner joy. "Big Brother Wu Di, why haven't we received a system notification?" Lin Shi suddenly said with a frown. When they reached the safe zone before, everyone had received a system prompt, but this time there was no movement at all. Hearing Lin Shi's words, Wu Di also remembered that at the end of the first stage, when they arrived at the safe zone, they indeed received a system notification for the safe zone and a notification for the points being credited. "Let's check the situation first," Wu Di said in a heavy voice. He also didn't know why there was no system prompt this time. Upon hearing the conversation between Wu Di and Lin Shi, the originally excited Lin Yu gradually calmed down. Along with Su Wanwan, she quietly waited for Wu Di's decision. Shu Kexen looked at the four of them and secretly rolled her eyes. She knew in her heart that this place definitely had things she didn't understand, just like before. So she chose to remain silent and quietly observed everything around her. Lin Shi carefully scrutinized the surroundings and then spoke to remind Wu Di, "Big Brother Wu Di, look at that entrance over there. It doesn't look like it's for people to walk through. Should we drive straight in?" Wu Di looked in the direction Lin Shi pointed and saw a wide alloy gate directly in front of the building. Faint blue lights flickered on both sides of the gate, and the ground was paved with smooth panels covered in fine patterns, appearing more like it was designed for vehicle passage. He was silent for a moment, recalling the safe zone of the first stage, which indeed had no substantial danger. After thinking for a while, Wu Di switched to manual driving mode and slowly steered the RV toward the alloy gate. Chapter 158. You should have said so sooner. After the RV drove through the alloy gate, everyone inside felt the light and shadow dim before suddenly finding themselves in an enclosed space. The ceiling and surroundings were made of smooth, flat panels emitting a soft, pale white glow. There were no doors or windows here. The entire space was so quiet that they could clearly hear each other's breathing. Everyone looked at one another in mutual dismay. No one could explain what this place was, only feeling that it was both eerie and somewhat novel. Wu Di's gaze swept across the surroundings. He quickly discovered that the alloy gate behind them had already slowly descended, sealing so tightly that not a single crack was visible. Only a short distance ahead stood a half-person tall electronic screen. The screen was entirely black, its surface devoid of light, text, or patterns, standing there quietly with an air of mystery. Wu Di withdrew his gaze and spoke to the others in the vehicle. "Let's go. Get out and take a look. It should be safe now." I'm going to. Lin Yu was the first to respond. As soon as she finished speaking, she stood up impatiently, her eyes filled with curiosity. Subsequently, the five of them got out of the vehicle one after another and walked to the electronic screen in front. As they circled the screen to examine it closely, Lin Yue couldn't help but reach out and lightly touch the surface. The moment her fingertip made contact, the pitch-black screen suddenly lit up. A soft white light washed over the entire display, and lines of clear text slowly emerged. The group stared at the content on the screen for a moment before it finally dawned on them. It turned out that this enclosed space was exactly the safe zone they had been searching for. The electronic screen clearly marked the layout of this building. Floors 1 to 5 were the living service area, where everything from the real world could be found. Floors 6 to 10 were the accommodation area, though the standards for each floor varied, and the points requirements were worlds apart. Floor 6 cost 10 points. Floor 7 cost 100 points. Floor 8 cost 1,000 points. Floor 9 cost 10,000 points. And Floor 10 required 100,000 points. As for those who didn't want to spend points on accommodation, Wu Di noticed a line of small text in the corner of the screen, stating that vehicles could be parked for free in the underground parking lot for temporary rest. However, it was specifically highlighted in red text afterward. The underground parking lot was not part of the safe zone. The source of points was the vehicle points of each vehicle. Lin Yu tugged on Wu Di's sleeve and asked with an expectant face, "Big brother Wu Di, where are we staying?" Su Wanwan frowned, her gaze falling on the points markings on the screen. She looked at Wu Di and said softly, "Big brother Wu Di, the points requirements for each floor are so different, and it doesn't state the specific differences between them. What should we do?" After speaking, she stared fixedly at Wu Di, clearly waiting for him to make a decision. Lin Shi pondered for a moment before speaking up with a suggestion. "How about we stay on floor 9? This points requirement isn't particularly high." "What? Stay on floor 9? No. Do we even have that many points? We aren't that big shot who's ranked number 1 on the vehicle leaderboard." The moment Shu Kexen heard Lin Shi suggest floor 9, she couldn't help but object, her tone full of disbelief. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt Wu Di, Lin Shi, Lin Yue, and Su Wanwan all looking at her simultaneously, with a faint, indiscernible smile in their eyes. This caused her heart to skip a beat, and her words trailed off. "What's wrong? Am I wrong? We aren't." Halfway through, Zhu Kexen seemed to suddenly realize something. Her eyes widened abruptly, and her voice became a stutter. "Holy crap! We couldn't be." Lin Yu leaned over at this point, hugging Zhu Kexen's arm and shaking it with a laugh. "Hey, Sister Zhu, you only just realized. Big brother Wu Di is that big shot who's number 1 on the vehicle leaderboard. We're the strongest team. How about that? Surprised?" Lin Shi lightly tapped Lin Yu's head and said helplessly, "Xiao Yu, stop messing around." She then turned to look at the shocked Zhu Kexen, her tone softening. "Sister Zhu, we didn't intend to hide it from you. You didn't ask before, and it wasn't appropriate for us to bring it up ourselves." At this moment, various miraculous aspects of Wu Di's RV flashed through Zhu Kexen's mind. The solid defenses, the abundant supplies, and that magical space. She had no choice but to believe this fact. She looked at Wu Di with a face full of amazement, her eyes searching for confirmation, seemingly waiting for his final verification. "The stronger the power, the greater the crisis we face. You saw that today as well," Wu Di explained simply. After speaking, he turned back to the accommodation points on the electronic screen, just about to announce the decision. "We'll stay." Before Wu Di could finish his sentence, he heard Shu Kexin's excited voice ring out. "Ah, boss Wu Di. You should have said so sooner. If you had said earlier that you were such a thick thigh to cling to, there wouldn't have been so much trouble. I've suffered quite a bit on this journey." The others saw that Shu Kexin was now flushed with excitement. As she spoke, she quickly walked over and tightly hugged Wu Di's arm. The disdain and dissatisfaction on her face had long since vanished without a trace, replaced only by unconcealable excitement and fawning. Chapter 159. Hello, honored guest. At this moment, Su Wanwan, Lin Shi, and Lin Yu looked at Shu Kexin with strange expressions, while Shu Kexin paid them no mind, completely ignoring their gazes. "All right, we're staying on the 10th floor. Stop messing around," Wu Di said, as he gently pulled his hand back from Shu Kexin's embrace. The four of them, who had been staring at each other in a tense standoff, were instantly stunned upon hearing Wu Di's words, and looked at him in surprise. Lin Yu even subconsciously opened her mouth wide, nearly crying out in shock. Even the consistently calm Su Wanwan had a flicker of surprise in her eyes, and the fawning look on Shu Kexin's face froze for a moment. Clearly none of them had expected Wu Di to decide on the most expensive 10th floor. Lin Shi was the first to snap out of it, frowning as she spoke softly. "Big brother Wu Di, isn't this a bit too wasteful? The points required for the 10th floor are no small amount. There's no need for us to spend so many points on accommodation." Lin Yu also nodded quickly in agreement. "Yeah, big brother Wu Di, staying on the 9th floor should be enough. No one else can even afford the 9th floor. The 10th floor is just too luxurious and a waste of points." As she spoke, she peeked at Wu Di's reaction. Su Wanwan didn't say anything. She just stood quietly to the side, her eyes fixed thoughtfully on the points requirement for the 10th floor displayed on the electronic screen. She offered no opinion, clearly deferring to Wu Di's arrangement. Recovering from her shock, Shu Kexin quickly hid her surprise and spoke up. "Boss, even though I want to stay on the 10th floor too, isn't it a bit too wasteful?" "It's decided, let's go." Wu Di ignored their debate, his tone unyielding. He immediately performed a series of quick operations on the electronic screen. Following the prompt, "Points successfully deducted," a faint sound of mechanical operation came from his side. A panel in the sealed side wall retracted smoothly, and the cramped space instantly opened up as a wide entrance slowly appeared. Warm golden light spilled out from the entrance, carrying a faint, crisp, woody fragrance that instantly dispelled the surrounding chill, a stark contrast to the oppression of the previously enclosed space. What appeared before them was an extremely luxurious penthouse space. The light gold marble floor was warm and polished, and a full-length observation window offered an expansive view. Leather sofas, crystal ornaments, and separate bedrooms were arranged in an orderly fashion, with soft, warm lighting and greenery interspersed throughout. Every detail was exquisite and sophisticated. "Hello, honored guests. I'm your temporary butler. My name is Yi Yi." A gentle and steady voice suddenly rang out, breaking everyone's daze. Only then did they react and turn to look. Standing in a side corner of the space was a middle-aged man around 40 years old. He wore a crisp black butler's uniform with a white bow tie. His hair was neat, his expression gentle and respectful, and his posture was upright, exuding a steady and appropriate temperament. All of them widened their eyes, their faces filled with shock and disbelief. Since arriving in this survival world, they had only seen other survivors and had never encountered an unfamiliar figure. Wu Di's body tensed instantly, his eyes becoming sharp and wary as he stared intently at Yi Yi. The atmosphere around him grew heavy, clearly showing he hadn't let down his guard. "Please rest assured, honored guests, I am an artificial intelligence, not a real human. During your stay, I will provide you with exclusive service throughout," Butler Yi Yi explained softly, still maintaining a gentle tone as if sensing the shock and unease of Wu Di and the others. Hearing Yi Yi's words, Lin Yue was the first to relax a bit, most of the wariness in her eyes dissipating as she even looked at Yi Yi a few more times out of curiosity. Su Wanwan breathed a slight sigh of relief, but still didn't completely let down her guard. Lin Shi frowned, scrutinizing Yi Yi as if to confirm if what he said was true. Shu Kexin also quietly observed this suddenly appearing butler. Only Wu Di remained vigilant, his gaze locked onto Yi Yi as he said in a low voice, "Can you give us a brief introduction to this place?" Yi Yi bowed his head slightly, his tone respectful and steady. "Of course, guest. Next, I will explain the overall layout and supporting facilities of this penthouse residence." "You don't need to explain those." Wu Di waved his hand, cutting Yi Yi off. His tone was blunt. "I only want to know what's special about this 10th floor room and how it differs from the other floors." Yi Yi remained respectful and steady, responding slowly. "Rest assured, guest. As an exclusive penthouse residence, the 10th floor has 4 major privileges: direct access via a private elevator, free vehicle repairs, the ability to convert points from the previous stage into city spending points, and the option to spend points to purchase one self-selected exclusive item." Chapter 160, Vehicle Maintenance. Hearing Yi Yi's words, Wu Di's heart skipped a beat, especially concerning the item, free vehicle maintenance. He immediately thought of the all-domain stealth reconnaissance plane that had long since been damaged and scrapped, and the fact that the remaining lifespan of the current vehicle-mounted nuclear reactor was only 4 days. If it could be successfully repaired here, the 100,000 points spent would be entirely worth it. Thinking of this, Wu Di followed up urgently. "This vehicle maintenance you mentioned, how exactly is it done?" Yi maintained her standard butler's posture, standing tall and responding in a respectful, steady tone. "Guest, you only need to inform me of the vehicle's situation, and I can immediately arrange the maintenance for you." Wu Di frowned slightly, still harboring some concerns. Even though Yi Yi claimed to be an artificial intelligence, he couldn't completely lower his guard. The vehicle was too important to them. If an accident occurred during maintenance, or if it was tampered with, the consequences would be unimaginable. After a moment of silence, he spoke again with a hint of caution. "Can we watch from the side?" Yi Yi nodded slightly, as if she had already anticipated his concerns. "Please rest assured, guest. The entire maintenance process takes place within your room. The vehicle will not leave your sight, and you can check the progress at any time. Shall we begin the repairs now?" Su Wanwan, Lin Shi, Lin Yue, and Shu Kexin all looked toward Wu Di. Wu Di met their gazes and, after pondering for a few seconds, made a decision. "Let's begin now." "Very well, guest." Yi Yi bowed slightly and made a gesture to lead the way. "Please step out of the workshop. The maintenance program will be activated inside. For your safety, please do not stay. I will arrange the maintenance matters immediately." Wu Di and the others followed Yi Yi's guidance and slowly walked out of the workshop. Just as they stepped out the door, they saw Yi Yi raise her hand and swipe a few times in the air. Immediately after, the workshop door they had just exited slowly closed inward, the smooth panels fitting together seamlessly as if it had never existed. Yi Yi turned around, resuming her respectful stance, and said to Wu Di, "Guest, vehicle maintenance has officially begun. The estimated repair time is 3 hours. During this time, would you like me to introduce the room's other facilities or explain matters regarding the integral hub city?" Wu Di waved his hand, his gaze sweeping across the spacious and luxurious living room, his tone carrying a hint of exhaustion. "No need. You all go take a look. I need some quiet for a while." After many consecutive days of tense survival, combined with the series of events just now, he needed to calm down to take stock of his supplies and plan for the future to deal with upcoming unknown crises. Lin Yu immediately approached, her face filled with anticipation as she tugged on Wu Di's sleeve. "Big brother Wu Di, aren't you coming with us? I want to go check out floors 1 through 5. Maybe we can find something useful." "Let's go, Xiaoye. We'll go together." Lin Shi stepped forward gently and took Lin Yu's hand. Although she didn't know what Wu Di wanted to sort out alone, she knew he needed space and didn't disturb him further. Then she turned to look at Yi Yi. "Butler Yi Yi, we want to visit the life services area on floors 1 through 5. Could you please take us there?" Yi bowed slightly in a respectful guiding gesture. "Certainly, guests. This way, please. Please follow me. The exclusive elevator will take you directly to the first floor." Having said that, she led the way toward the elevator entrance on one side of the living room. Su Wanwan glanced at Wu Di, who was already sitting on the sofa, clearly deep in thought. She didn't approach to disturb him, but silently walked to Shu Kexen's side and gently took her hand, her tone warm. "Sister Zhu, come take a look with us." Shu Kexen hesitated, her eyes unconsciously drifting toward Wu Di on the sofa as she whispered, "Hey, are you all leaving? Should I stay here?" After spending time together, she had realized one thing. Wu Di was the backbone here, the thickest thigh to cling to. "No need. Let big brother Wu Di stay alone for a while. He likely has important matters to handle." Su Wanwan shook her head gently and directly dragged Shu Kexen along, giving her no chance to hesitate further. Shu Kexen had no choice but to look back at Wu Di once, before being pulled into the elevator by Su Wanwan. The elevator doors slowly closed, and the room became completely silent. Wu Di sat up straight, rubbing his brow to relieve his fatigue, then tapped on his wristband space to begin taking stock of his current gains. First, regarding basic materials, Wu Di carefully checked the inventory in the wristband space. Currently, there were 99 units of metal blocks, 77 units of plastic, 37 units of rubber, and 96 units of glass. Additionally, in the domain space, there were 1,000 units of basic materials purchased at the previous safe zone, though only the electronic components were down to less than 1,000 units. Next was quantum essence. Yesterday at the supply point, he encountered a total of 5 exchange opportunities and exchanged for 25 units in total. Previously, crafting the omni-dimensional perception array and the Titan Mk4 composite chassis had used up 10 units, leaving 15 units remaining. At this point, Wu Di's gaze unconsciously fell upon an item in the wristband space. Construct Armor Xuanjia Battle Armor, one-time use item. Upon use, summons a Xuanjia Battle Armor. Consumption, 100 to 1,000 units of metal blocks, 1 energy core, 100 to 1,000 units of electronic components, 100 units of rubber, 100 units of plastic, 100 units of glass. Constructs a humanoid metal mecha puppet equipped with alloy arm blades for melee combat and a small energy launcher, possessing basic combat logic and low-level intelligence. The mecha's strength, defense, attack power, and endurance depend on the quantity and quality of materials used. The energy core is replaceable. The mecha exists permanently until destroyed and cannot be repaired. Looking at the item details, Wu Di shook his head slightly, his tone carrying a hint of helplessness. "Looks like you'll have to stay in storage for a while longer." Although he wasn't sure how strong the Xuanjia Battle Armor's combat power was, his current materials were insufficient to meet the summoning requirements, so he could only set it aside for now.